Hey guys, my name is Mary Jane, and in this video, we are going to give you some tips on how long your answers should be for the IELTS speaking test. So let's get it started. Let's move on to our first speaking advice. So there's actually an advice on the best length of your answer for each part of the IELTS speaking test. So we are going to learn how many sentences we need to use for the IELTS speaking part 1 and how we can expand our answers for the IELTS speaking part 2. Also, we are going to learn on how long our answers should be for speaking part 3. So let's start with speaking part 1 advice. So here is, let's say, a very common question for speaking part 1. I heard that answers for speaking part 1 should be short. Are the answers below okay for part 1? So we are also going to give some example answers and questions too for each speaking part. So let's have the first one. Question: what was your favorite book or story when you were a child? The first book that I remember really enjoying was It Only Took Me a Few Days to Read because I liked it so much that I couldn't put it down. Another question: do you like reading? Yes, I like reading a lot. I read all sort of things, including novels, newspapers, magazines, and online articles. Now, we have some tips for this one. We're going to give you some advice and tips for speaking part 1 and how the person also answered for this part. So, the first thing that we need to know is that you don't really need to limit your answer to only 2 sentences. If it's possible, give more than 2 sentences, but try not to make it too long also. Next, be more natural with your answer. So you have to be confident about your answer. Do not over exaggerate also because this is just really part 1. Next, if you have more information, then it would be better if you're going to give it. For the second question, so I would probably give more, let's say, for example, yes, I like reading a lot. I read all sorts of things, including novels, newspapers, magazines, and online articles. However, most of my time is spent reading novels in order to relax and forget my problems. So, see, the person is really trying to expand the answers in that case. Remember that speaking part 1 is 4 to 5 minutes long and usually it has around 12 questions. So if your fluency is strong, you will be able to give longer answers. However, if you have some hesitations when you're answering the questions of the examiner, then that means that you are already wasting your time and then you're also giving really short answers. But if you have strong fluency, then don't limit your answers to only 2 sentences. It's better that if you have, let's say, if you have high fluency, then you will be able to show the examiner you're able to speak at length without much effort. And lastly, if your answer is too long, the examiner will stop you and move on to the next questions. But this is not a really bad thing, it's actually okay. So don't get offended if the examiner is going to stop you. So that just means that the examiner already heard your answers and it's time to move on to the next questions.